Now, what got you started to developing games? Was it just your love for games and you knew that's what you wanted to do? Or was there something that just one day just clicked and you were like, oh, this is how it's done. Let me do this.
It's it's something that I kind of always wanted to do, and I was pretty fortunate back in the '90s. There was a studio, or there was a developer called Westwood Studios. They were in Las Vegas. I was in Las Vegas. I was going to school, and they had an opening in the QA team. And I had a buddy that left the place where I was at to go work in their customer service team. And he said, "Hey, do you want to come work here?" And that was kind of that the rest is history at that point. I took the job, and then from that point, worked through QA. I actually was in marketing for a few years, community. I did PR, community, all sorts of good stuff. And then it was about 2000, 2001, I got into design. And that's where basically I'm like, this is it for me. And I've loved it ever since. So for me, a lot of people are like, well, I make games for the art. I make games for this. People ask me, why do you make games? And I do it because I like making people smile. I love watching their reactions to things that I've created. If I can create something, or our team can create something that people can escape from the day-to-day realities of the world. It's like reading a book. You can escape for a while. Then mission accomplished. We've done something great that people can enjoy and just escape the realities of the world for just a little bit. So as a game maker, that's my fire. That's what I strive to do with every game that I make, is create something that will entertain people.
Now, if you weren't a game developer, what would you be?
I have no idea.
That's it never crossed my mind. It's like this is what I want.
Yeah.
That's what I'm stuck with.
That's all it's actually all I know. I mean, I don't know what I would do. My wife actually asked me that question. I'm like, I don't know. So, yeah.
Now, how many games have you worked on?
Over the course of 20 years, I've worked on over 40 titles.
Wow.
I was part of, if I could go through my history, but I'll call out just a couple. I was part of the Command and Conquer team. So
Ooh.
I was one of those few developers, and I'm very honored by this, to actually say I was part of a team that actually helped define a genre of gaming.
Command and Conquer was great.
Yeah, not many people can say that. And I worked on great AAA games for the time. I worked on, I've had the honor of working on Lord of the Rings. I've worked on Star Wars. And I've worked with, when I was at Microsoft, I got to work with the creator of Panzer Dragoon.
Oh my God, I love those games.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been one of those developers that's been pretty fortunate and blessed over the years to have worked with great people. So I look back at my history, and then all of those experiences kind of led up to making Savage Lands, and because I had to pull from a lot of things I've done in my past as a solo designer on the project, and to get this game out the door. And we got it out in early access in less than 10 months. Which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I remember I just watched the stream this past week, and it's been 10 months altogether, like 9.5 months they were saying, or something like that, from the point that it started to where it's at, which is like mind-blowing to me.
And that's actually a testament to the team as a whole, because the team is comprised of veteran developers. Even though we're more indie than anything else, if you were to combine our total industry experience, we have well over 100 years. Which, these are guys, when I bring up a system, they've already built it at some point in their career. So for them, it was just, we were just cranking things out. Procedural spawners, item spawners, loots, all of this stuff was, done in days versus, for some of the guys that for some of the teams that don't have that experience, could take weeks. So, I mean, the development team is some of the best in the industry that we have working on this game, from the artists to the audio to the code team. Our code team really should get high props, because these guys, if you look at the water in the game, the water is amazing.
It's beautiful. Beautiful.
Our tech director ripped out Unity's code and literally put in his own code for the water stuff. And
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. And hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll be moving to Unity 5 as we continue the development of the game.
I mean, it's so early in the game. It's like the graphics are gorgeous. Like, they really are beautiful. And like I was saying before, it's like usually when you do an early access game, the graphics are like more like placeholders. They can be nice, but they'll be upgraded. It's like this game looks like a polished, beautiful piece of art.
Yeah, that was one of our pillars, was to have a very beautiful looking game, on top of having a very solid gameplay experience and a solid set of features that could get us started in early access. We didn't want to ship the game, with a lot of placeholder. Now, some people have run into areas that I haven't had a chance to really touch yet, like with floating objects, which I apologize for, and I have
It happens.
I have fixed those. But having great looking visuals, having really solid gameplay, having a lot of your core gameplay features in place when you launch, I think is absolutely critical, especially in this day and age of early access, because it gives players, a good starting base, and it helps, where you're going to launch from. And it also shows that, hey, these guys are really serious about the game that they're making, which we are. If you ever visit our forums on Steam, I'm always in those forums answering questions. Feedback, I'll take it, positive or negative. We love that stuff. So, but building a great foundation to leap from was one of our core pillars when we set out to build this game. And I think we've done it. And thank you for saying great things about the graphics. I know our art team will be very happy to hear that, because those guys were very meticulous in building everything out and making everything look good. So
You can definitely see that.
And we're still not done. They're actually still working on more stuff.
Oh, I don't doubt that. Like I know this is like early access. I was just the first time I loaded the game, I was just like, wow. I was like, this can't be early access. Come on now. This is too pretty. This is, and it's like, and like the AI with the pack mentality, it's like I've gotten into it with packs of wolves where I've got 3 in front of me and 2 coming around to try to flank me, and like 1 in the back, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? There's like, I'm just like flailing around like crazy and getting bitten everywhere. And it's like, you don't really see that in a lot of games. A lot of them will just be like, well, here's 5 wolves and they're all in front of you.
Now, that was our AI coder, John. He's just did a phenomenal job with the AI. And again, that goes back to creating, each creature in the game has its own unique AI. And the idea was to build it organically, so the AI would, the way that creature behaves is much how you would expect it to behave in the wild. Wolves behave in a pack mentality.
Yeah.
Deer, you get close, they'll bound away. So that was, we have many more creatures that we want to put in, but what we have there is pretty cool. It's a lot of work. I mean, if you look at it, creatures. One of the things we didn't want to have are creatures running through objects. Because there's nothing more game breaking than going into a house and all of a sudden the wolf comes popping through the collision. That doesn't. We actually put many weeks into making sure that wouldn't happen again. Going back to because we knew that we had to compete with the greats like DayZ, the Forest, and the only way we could do that is to come out with something that was rock solid. A lot of features that games didn't necessarily ship with when they launched, we had to have.
Right.
And so that's how we looked at it. So we put in many hours making sure that what you're seeing was rock solid and fun to play.
It definitely is rock solid. Now, how did you get the inspiration for the game's concept?
Well, when we all came together, because we work with Digital DNA, they're the guys that kind of manage the whole back end code aspects of the game. The president of Signal, the president of Digital DNA, they got together and they were talking about games and partnerships and what they could do. And one of those that came up was, hey, survival. We're really into survival games here. What do you guys think about doing it? And DNA had done some games, and Signal really wanted to get into it, so they said yeah. So we actually did our research on the genre. We're like, okay, there's a lot of zombie games, there's a lot of dinosaur games. What hasn't really been done? Oh, fantasy. So it seemed to make the perfect sense. Of course, with fantasy, comes a lot of work because people, there's you got to do dragons, you got to do a variety of skeletons. You got to do a ton of different creatures, and I don't know if that's just us being veteran devs that it's like, yeah, sure, we can do more work. But that's the path we wanted to take. But most importantly, fantasy gave us the opened the door to allow us to add more content at any time. We can do anything we want that's the beauty of fantasy, and that's why we chose that particular theme to go with. And nobody had really done it, so we
No,
thought we'd be the first to do it.
I can't. There is no fantasy survival, and like I was sold the second, like, you know, I obviously check out games, everything like that, and I like survival games, and I was like, okay, I have a bunch of dinosaur ones, bunch of zombie ones, and I'm like, oh, fantasy, and then I saw like the skeletons and the dragon, I'm like, oh, I'm sold, I'm so
Yeah.
sold.
You know, players have asked, "Hey, when are you going to be able to take down the dragon?" And the dragon right now, we want that experience to be really cool. So the dragon's name is actually Kerr. So you'll see Kerr. He just flies around the world, kind of surveying the land. We're working on his AI right now to get it into a really good state, so that when he attacks, he'll pick you out, he'll single you out, and he will attack and kill you. He's going to be one of those epic encounters that you would find in an MMO. He's not going to be this, hey, I got this really awesome sword, the Grey Reaver, I'm going to go up against Kerr. No, it's not going to work like that. You're going to have to work with other players to take down this particular encounter. We also have some other epic encounters in the game. The Forest Giants are actually the Guardians of the Isle, and I have more backstory behind those guys and why there's only a few of them left. So there's a lot of cool stuff that we're kind of baking in over time. I've planted a few Easter eggs into the world. So if you guys go exploring and you find little rare spawners, if you find a dead skeleton on the ground, there's a potential that that skeleton may have been part of an epic battle or have something cool. So keep an eye out for those in the world as you explore. But I could keep talking and talking, but this game is just, we're going to pack it full with a ton of stuff, and we got a lot of feedback, what players want to see. I'm in the midst of doing tons of balance work right now, so we have a new patch coming online on Thursday, and actually that's one of the things I want to mention, if you don't mind, is we have an update schedule. We actually want to release a patch every week, be it small,
Nice.
be it large. I know a lot of, if you look at a lot of early access games, a lot of people complain about, well, they just want to do a cash grab or they're just in it for the money. Not us. We actually want to make a great game. We want to make some great technology so that we can make more games that are great. So it only makes sense for us to do good by the community, to keep the game updated, provide fresh content, and get the game where we envision it to be, so we can actually launch the game out of early access and have, do something really cool. So we're going to try to do every week, and I'm very transparent. I will say, if we can't do it every week, I will come out to the community and say there's not going to be a patch. I have no problem taking it on the chin. But that's, we're going to do our best to try to get updates out there every week for the fans.
Yeah, I like how you have the little box when you load in that says like update in 3 days, things like that. That's awesome. I like that a lot.
That's cool. We have a little ticker at the bottom that'll actually highlight some of the bigger kind of key elements of that update.
Yeah, I saw that too. I thought that was really interesting. But that's cool to see though. So at least you know it's being worked on. It's not like something that they're just like, here, have fun.
Yeah.
You just
We'll get back to you in 4 weeks. No, we're not. We got again, we have tons of stuff they want to do. I'm always fiddling with the game. I'm doing stuff at home on the weekends. Trying to make sure that content is good. I've also crowdsourced ideas. We're going to redesign the consumable system now that you can go out in the world and harvest berries and nuts in the next patch. We're going to redesign how health is distributed and how hunger is distributed. So we're going to kind of separate the two. So you're going to need to collect berries and nuts and make cool recipes out of those for health. You're also going to have to go kill deer and other wild creatures to satiate your hunger. And cold. So we're doing some cool things, but I crowdsourced that idea in the community and they really liked it. So that's what I love about the community. We don't have all the best ideas, and using the fans, the guys that actually play it, a ton more than I can now, is a great way to go. And I love all the feedback that we're getting.
Yeah, feedback is a good thing. So what inspires you outside of gaming?
That's a great question. I read when I can, but in truth, a lot of my inspiration as a designer comes from the world. I'm inspired by, I look at a lot of great things too, going back to the industry of what a lot of people do in terms of games. I always get excited to see new concepts and new games, and I like being able to take real world elements, like being able to merge things like Game of Thrones in with our world to create something unique. So I kind of draw inspiration from many different sources. I definitely use a lot of movies. I did that in the past in a lot of games. I love when I used to build strategy games like Command and Conquer, military was a huge inspiration. A great story, when we were building Command and Conquer, we were actually contacted by the DoD about one of our units, and they were curious about where we got the design from. So, pretty
You
cool
didn't get in
stuff.
trouble for that one, did you?
No, they were interested, and it's amazing when you think about it, because our inspirations for a lot of those games were, military, future concepts, and cool figures from the past, like Tesla, Einstein, and where all these cool technologies came from. And it was really interesting when they contacted Westwood. They're like, "Yeah, we're just curious where you came up with this design for this unit you call the Orca, which is a VTL, vertical takeoff aircraft, a really agile unit." And they're like, we want to clear up some things. So it was
Yes, we want to build one in real life.
pretty interesting. I wasn't involved in those talks, but I heard from the president of the company that there was definitely some discussions had with the DoD.
Ooh. So how would you say the game's being received so far?
I think it's really positive. I know a lot of people have mentioned that the game is really difficult to start out. There's a few things that we're going to try to remedy in that area, but it is a survival game. It is a brutal survival game. Actually, that's kind of one of our core design pillars, is its brutal, hostile world. But that doesn't mean that we can't ease things up on the in the initial starting areas, the beach band, as I like to call it. So we're gonna make a few tweaks there. But in general, I think people really like what they see. They're really inspired by the direction that we're taking. So we're kind of feeding off that, and it's kind of energizing us to keep doing more.
Now, obviously, I said earlier, 9.5, 10 months is how long the game's been being worked on, which is awesome. But how many people are involved in making the game? How large is the actual team that's working on it?
So our core team is about 7 individuals, and then it has fluctuated up to about 10 at a time. But we kind of skim back down. Usually, those extra individuals are animators, because we need a lot of animation for our creatures. And luckily, here at Signal, we have a pretty big animation team, so we'll bring some guys on, and then we'll scale back. But 7 guys, basically seven individuals on the team. So really good bunch of developers.
Now, do you have any examples of what's gone right during development so far?
We shipped on time.
Hey, all right. That works.
What's gone right? It's really hard. I would say a lot of things went right. Our AI, the tools that we use, the systems that power the back end, some of the best systems in terms of being able to create content for the actual game world. All of those systems are really easy for designers and artists to use. So, we haven't really had a lot of hiccups. Now, the one thing I would say that we don't have yet, which we really want, is the dragon attacking and lighting the forests on fire, because we are going to add forest fires to the game.
Oh God.
So, that's not really necessarily a negative. That's us saying we didn't feel it was ready yet, and we didn't want to put something crappy out there. So. We're just, we had to hold off. But in general, the game, everything went really well, which for game development, having worked on 40 games, is crazy surprising. Usually something always goes to pots, and nothing went, everything was on target. So again, that's a testament to the team, and remaining focused, diligent, and only building what was critical to get the game into early access to make a fun experience.
So, I guess nothing really went wrong during development, or have you had a certain thing that you did and there was a hitch and you're like, oh God, no, type thing?
Well, I could call it, I don't have a lot of major things that went wrong. They're kind of always little things. For example, campfires. Why can't you relight campfires? Well, truthfully, I'll be honest with you, that we actually fixed that bug. There was a bug where the duration was endless, and we fixed that literally a day before we locked down the build to go early access. And so the alpha testers didn't get a lot of time to test it. And then once it went live, we were like, oh, boy, that was dumb. Yeah, we forgot to. So that was one of those, not even the wise can see, all ends situations. We didn't realize it until it was out in the wild, and then we're like, okay, we fixed it. But in the next patch, it is fixed. So,
okay.
But, that's one thing. Bows, we wanted to get ranged weapons in, but we had issues with the projectile system. And again, we didn't want to release something that was crappy. So we held it back, and I know a lot of players were a little disappointed by that, but I'd rather it be good than crappy. So hopefully in the next, by Game Update 2, we'll have it ready for introduction for players.
That'll be awesome. Now, let me see here. You've worked on quite a few previous other games. Where do you think the game industry will be in 5 to 10 years?
Oh, that's,
That's the golden question.
that is a great question, and I'm no prophet by any means. I'm actually amazed where we're at today. With being able to stream and communicate. I mean, you didn't have that back in the '90s.
No.
The '90s were the great, were the glory days. It was like the Wild West of gaming. Anything could be done. Technology was just constantly being evolved. Now, we got these technology bases that are so mature. There are so many things that we can do with it. Indie gaming is on the rise. Was just continually on the rise and doing really well. Indie development. So, I mean, I truthfully, it's hard to say. I'm now 20 years in saying, wow, okay, we've reached this really cool pinnacle, or we've reached the top of the hill, but there's still, now we got to reach the top of the mountain, and I have no idea where that is. So I'm just along for the ride, and as a developer, it's all about constantly learning and adapting and creating new experiences that players can really enjoy. So I wish I had a great answer, but I don't.
That's a hard one to answer because you never know. You really don't know where it's going to be. It's more of your opinion
of
where
really
it's
is.
going to go. Because some people say VR, like the Oculus or virtual reality. It's out there. You don't know.
No,
God knows what technology is going to come out tomorrow.
Absolutely, and I think Oculus is great. Is some great technology. We have it here at Signal, and we're actually looking to include it in some of our products. I can't say which just yet, but we're looking to add it. But it is amazing technology. But will it will it be the revolutionizer that everybody hopes? Maybe not. It's
Right.
hard. It's really hard to say. But I think it will be an amazing addition to gaming. I think some great experiences will come from that. I would love to play BioShock again with an Oculus.
That would be awesome.
I mean, that is what I'm waiting for. I want to play BioShock with Oculus.
Have a big daddy at you and just be like, ah!
Yeah, and those and the worlds that you can create, and that's what's going to challenge designers with the Oculus is, rethinking how you create these worlds and how you interact with these worlds. So I think a lot of cool things will happen. But, who's to say in 2 years what new technologies are going to be that we can take advantage of?
I was going to say in 6 months. I mean, it moves so quickly. It's crazy.
I mean, Microsoft just announced their hologram technology. Does that make sense for games? Maybe. Who's to say, right?
Have a fighting game. You're fighting a holograph in your living room.
Who knows? I mean, there's a lot of... So technology is amazing. I still remember when... Back in the 90s, I'm like, boy, it'll be great the day we can actually talk to people face to face on our phones. And now we have it, and we're like, wow, okay, that's great. What's
It's
next?
like, oh, all right.
So,
Now, what did you enjoy playing in 2014 game-wise? Did you have a particular game that you enjoyed?
yes. So going back, and a lot of these came. I enjoyed playing The Forest. I like The Forest a lot. And keep in mind, I was crunching a lot during 2014, so my gameplay was a bit limited. I enjoyed DayZ. I actually learned a lot from DayZ, and one of my favorite games right now that I'm enjoying when time permits is Subnautica.
Oh, I love Subnautica.
Yeah, so it's a great game, and I applaud those developers, the guys behind it. It's a good experience.
It is. It's a beautiful experience. That's another one that I was highly impressed with the artwork on.
Yeah, those guys did a great job. Their UI is really clean. I mean, it's a good game. I mean, so and again, that's another one of those when we that sets a new kind of marker that you got to hit when you're doing early access. It's like, wow, those guys did a great job with their visuals. We got to make sure that we're top notch when we come out as well. So, but I believe all of the games that I just mentioned, they offer different types of experiences. And I think that's key. I've really gotten into the survival genre, so there's a lot of different flavors out there, and that's why I think Savage Lands is definitely going to be unique among those because that whole fantasy element building off that concept is really cool. So I'm hoping that we can kind of fit right in and be up there with the greats.
Now, what would you say is your favorite game of all time?
Well, I would say I'll have to look at the game that I put the most hours into, and that would be EverQuest.
Ooh.
So, and there's some inspirations drawn from EverQuest as well. But I loved EverQuest, and I played it hundreds and hundreds of hours. So,
Oh, I hear that. I played Warcraft at least 120 hours a week for 8 years straight. So I'm right there with you with a
yeah,
lot.
so that's one of my. I mean, I'd say that's one of my favorite games. And then, of course, I'm a big fan of Zelda, Legend of Zelda. I love Zelda, and I got three. The third one is Star Control 2. Was one of my favorite games of all
okay.
time. Very old. It was an older game, but there was just something magical about going to different worlds, exploring, and saving the galaxy from ultimate destruction. I love that.
That's always a fun thing. Now, what's your favorite moment that you've ever had in a game? Like, has there something that's hit you emotionally or changed the way you thought about something?
I would. It's a very simple moment, but it was one of those moments in gaming that kind of redefined how I thought about experiences. So if anybody's ever played the original Resident Evil,
Yes.
there's a moment where the crows come breaking through the windows in this hallway, and it scared the living crap out of me. I mean, and that's the first time I really ever experienced something like that in a game. And I thought, wow, this is, and again, because I was always, I was working on a lot of strategy games at the time. I'm like, this is, and I was saying to myself at the time, this is something, of course, I'm like, this is going to catch on. People are going to do more of this kind of cool stuff. But I remember that moment very clearly. And of course, the other moment I had in time was taking down Nagafin in EverQuest, which was working together with 50 other players to take down a creature. Which was pretty epic. You didn't really, back in the late '90s, early 2000s, you didn't see that. So when you're online with 50 other players taking down an epic monster, and then you're all random, who's going to get the loot?
Yeah. That's mine. Give me that.
So those are some cool moments that I share. But I mean, I could churn up a lot of stuff from I've played hundreds of games. So, but those to me are two very important defining moments that really kind of always pop to my front of mind.
Now, do you have another title in the works that you're going to be working on, or you're strictly dealing with just Savage Lands right now until it's all done, ready to go, package complete, and then ideas will start to come forward, a little bit down the road with a new game?
So Savage is in the works. We plan to bring it to completion. I am on that 90%. The other 10% right now is generating. We already have an idea of what we're going to do next. And again, we've kind of isolated a really cool area. And I can't say the genre, but I'm sure you could potentially guess. We have a really cool concept that we're super excited. But again, it would be after Savage.
That's understandable. I'm sure you guys are busy enough with this. To add another one would probably be like people complaining, you're trying to kill me.
We'd like Savage to get to a point, if it does well, people are, that's the great thing about early access is they help fund the game. I know people, it's really critical to us because that kind of keeps the game going. And especially the better the better it does, the more more resources we can add to the project. And that's our hope, that we can get the team in a really good state, build it out, and just get a nice, cool pipeline going. And then we can break off our small subset of developers and move on to the next really cool thing that we think players would be really excited about.